what's up guys, Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. I want to talk about a video game that's going to come out later this year from Bethesda called Fallout 4. Now, I'm not going to talk so much about the game itself, so if you're a gamer and you're expecting some kind of insight into Fallout 4, this may not be the video for you, but if you're curious about the actual global agenda behind something like Fallout 4, then keep watching, because I'm going to go down a rabbit trail that I haven't gone down in a while, but it's concerning the New World Order and how it ties in with the video game industry as a whole. Now, in brief, the Fallout series is a post-apocalyptic role-playing video game that was created by Interplay Entertainment, and it's set in the 22nd and 23rd centuries in sort of a atom punk retro futuristic setting, and a lot of it's influenced by post-war culture of the 1950s, and if you just search online on YouTube, you'll see plenty of screen captures from all the Fallout games, but specifically with Fallout 4, one of the trailers for it became pretty popular this last couple months. Now, the first couple Fallouts were developed by Black Isle Studios, and a couple other companies have picked it up and have done spin-off games from Fallout. But in the last few years, Bethesda Softworks have basically taken over the rights to all the Fallout games, and there was some legal drama between them and Interplay Entertainment, but ultimately Bethesda won out. Now, again, the game itself, post-apocalyptic, robots, mutants, that kind of thing, and basically it's a post-apocalyptic world about 200 years after the nuclear holocaust that happened in 2077, and there's some cryogenics involved because the main character of the story, allegedly anyway, takes shelter in Vault 111 with their family during the nuclear bombs that were dropped on October 23rd, 2077, and he wakes up mysteriously 200 years later, unaged, as the Vault's sole survivor. So again, cryogenics involved there with longevity of life, that sort of thing. So again, I'm not going to talk about the game so much, but I am going to discuss finances behind this and how video games like this, which is one of the biggest games out there, one of the most popular games, is connected to the New World Order system, which obviously is trying to bring about a globalism and a one world government and that sort of thing. So here we go. This rabbit trail is a little crazy, but I just want you guys to follow here. Now, Bethesda Softworks is an American video game publisher, and it's a subsidiary of ZeniMax Media. Now, ZeniMax is known to be a media company that develops and publishes video games through a bunch of their subsidiaries. They own ID Software, which developed Doom, Quake, and Wolfenstein. Also, again, Bethesda Games, which has done The Elder Scrolls, Fallout 3. They also look over Arcane Studios, which produced Arx Fatalis, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, and Dishonored. Also, Tango Gameworks, Machine Games, and ZeniMax Online Studios, and they were reportedly valued at $1.2 billion back in 2007. It was founded by Christopher Weaver and DC lawyer Robert A. Altman. And again, they're a huge company. They have their tentacles in all kinds of video game developers and things like that. So there's that aspect of it. But part of how they were funded is pretty fascinating. Now, before I get into that, though, just realize that a lot of these companies, I don't think start off with any kind of dark agenda or, trying to play into any kind of New World Order system. But I think as any company gets bigger and bigger, they're going to be offered certain perks, if you will, from up on high, the high places, as Scripture calls it. Okay, so on October 6, 2010, ZeniMax Media received $150 million in private investment in convertible preferred stock from Providence Equity Partners. And Providence had invested $300 million in ZeniMax in 2007. So back in 2007, they had already invested $300 million, and they invested another $150 million in 2010. And Providence Equity Partners holds 25% stake in ZeniMax Media. So, if you go into Providence Equity Partners, it is an American global private equity investment firm focused on media, communications, education, and information investments, and the firm manages funds with over $40 billion in commitments, making it a large global player in the private equity industry. And they're based out of Rhode Island, and it's led by founder and CEO Jonathan M. Nelson. They have invested in a lot of different things, from Autotrader.com, Blackboard Inc., Aircom, Hulu, Newport Television, Univision, VoiceStream, now T-Mobile US, Warner Music Group, Western Wireless, World Triathlon Corporation, which is the Ironman, Yes Network, and of course ZeniMax Media, and several others. Now again, the founder and CEO is a man named Jonathan M. Nelson. And you dig into Jonathan M. Nelson, he is a businessman and investor born in 1956. He graduated from Brown University in 1977 with a Bachelor in Science and Economics, and earned his Master's of Business Administration from Harvard Business School in 1983. And again, seemingly pretty innocent dude. I'm not saying that he's aligned with anything nefarious per se. Of course, Brown University has some interesting ties to secret societies, but that aside, in 2008, Nelson and other Providence principals launched Providence's credit investment arm with Thomas Gahn of Deutsche Bank. So there's our first sign of connections with the New World Order system. Now, in a book called A New World Order, Global Transformation in the Late 20th Century by David Alden Smith, states this: the Deutsche Bank, seeking to integrate Central European as an independent German base in the world market, was outflanked by the Anglo-Saxon capitalist elite originating in the 1920s in the successful incorporation of Eastern Europe into the IMF GATT-based economic sphere. As Jeffrey Sachs reminded us, this was possible because the multilaterals could make loans that did not require congressional and parliamentary authorization. So again, ties to the IMF, this is all part of the New World Order financial system. And it's no surprise that such a connection is made. Now, Providence Equity Partners, again, is a private equity company, and there's some interesting documents I ran into. This one is called The New World Order of Private Equity, and it's not some conspiracy theorist document. It's actually talking about how private equity has to evolve and change, and how, they're in a new era of private equity. And this was published back in 2009, right after the financial crash. And this was published on September 23rd, 2008. The New World Order, More Banks Will Need Capital Infusion. And this article talks about, again, private equity firms. Here's the last paragraph from this article. Quote, where will more of this money come from? Well, regulators just loosened the rules governing how much private equity firms can own of banks. The Fed said private investors can take stakes as high as 33% in banks, and 15% of that can be voting stock. Capital infusion from U.S. private equity firms could keep U.S. banks in U.S. hands. Capital infusion from foreign sources could spell more discomfort along the lines of the government's earlier unease when foreign sovereign wealth funds to invest in U.S. banks. Then again, that unease may disperse in a crisis. Beggars, as they say, can't afford to be choosers. And obviously, Jonathan M. Nelson, in connection to the Deutsche Bank, have gotten help from the overseas. And this is nothing new. Most people know about this kind of stuff, especially if you're into economics. You probably follow this kind of thing far better than I do. Another thing that's interesting is, again, Jonathan M. Nelson is a philanthropist, and he served as a fellow of Brown University. He's donated generously to Brown with the construction of the Nelson Fitness Center, and he also established 2 professorships at the university. And he's also committed to the Giving Pledge, a campaign that's led by Warren Buffett and Bill Gates to encourage the wealthiest people in the U.S. to make commitments to give their wealth to philanthropic causes. And of course, we know about Bill Gates and his sort of ties to the New World Order agenda and population control and that sort of thing. And so Jonathan Nelson is a multi-billionaire. He's reported as having a net worth of $2.1 billion. And in terms of globally, he's not even very high in terms of billionaires in the world. He's ranked at number 894, 318 in the US in 2015. So very rich, but not the super ultra rich. And again, I'm not saying he has any ties to anything. I haven't found any information of him being tied with any secret societies or anything like that. Although the suspicion is always there when you're tied to a university like Brown and you've invested multi-millions of dollars into such universities. So again, this is not an indictment on Jonathan M. Nelson. It's simply to show that mainstream popular culture, video games and such, are ultimately tied back to money that comes from global financial institutions that ultimately, when you look into the IMF and their spiritual philosophies, are very much aligned with the Luciferian agenda. And a game like Fallout 4, which obviously is social conditioning for a post-apocalyptic world, you know, getting used to robots and mutants and all kinds of weird stuff. It's just another piece to the social engineering, to the social conditioning of the masses. And it's not that any one person is intentionally pushing this sort of thing. It's rather a collective movement that is bringing about this new world order, global governance, and the conditioning and social engineering happening at a mass scale. And again, the only real answer to what is behind such a large movement, and I'm not even calling it a grand conspiracy of a physical kind, I believe it is a spiritual conspiracy. It can only happen through entities that are beyond our scope of understanding and perception. And that's where the biblical worldview comes into play. In the book of Matthew, chapter 4, there's a very interesting passage starting in verse 8 where it says, "Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, 'All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me.' Then Jesus said to him, 'Be gone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve.'" So very subtle here, just a couple lines here, but the devil took him to a high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said, "All these I will give you," which means who's in control here? Who has ownership of these kingdoms of the world? It's obviously Satan. And he said he will give it to Jesus if Jesus would only bow down and worship Satan. And again, when you look at the trickling down of finances in a global economic order, we know that at the very top, somewhere along the lines, we have Luciferians, true Satan worshippers, who have been given the keys to the kingdoms of this world. And what does Satan want in return? Worship. Which means that ultimately, and this is true if anyone studies the New World Order system, it's replete with satanic references, somebody at the very top, some human form. And I think this is not just with one individual. I believe this has happened with many global leaders throughout the centuries. They have ultimately bowed down to Satan in exchange to have authority over the kingdoms of this world. And that trickles all the way down, and the finances goes through these, large companies, like we kind of went down the rabbit trail here, into the hands of children through the form of things like Fallout 4, these video games that are conditioning young minds to accept some sort of post-apocalyptic world. And it's all in step with biblical prophecy, what the Bible has said will be the outcome of mankind, which is very interesting when you start looking into those sectors as well. So I know this was kind of a huge rabbit trail from Fallout 4 all the way to Matthew 4, but I think it's important to recognize what's going on here in this world and tie in all the loose ends of how this is all connected. This isn't just crazy talk. This is all connected. Everything that you think may have nothing to do with each other definitely have something to do with each other. And all I did was follow the old adage, follow the money. And if you start looking at large institutions, it always goes back to international economic institutions that delegate the cash into the hands of those who would promote anti-Christian sentiments. And I guess it gets messy when you start looking at the ties to New World Order money with churches. And I'm not going to even start to get into that, but that's all over the place as well if you dig in hard enough to certain areas that people have exposed over the years. So that's about it for this video, guys. Hope you guys have an awesome day. God bless.